It's really clear there are varying levels of excitement and organisational engagement when it comes to AI. But as Azim has shared, the time to act is now. And so our second session of the day has been designed with all of this in mind. It's going to explore how business leaders can move beyond the hype and turn AI theory into action. Joining me to explore the topic and share practical advice on how today's leaders can unlock the transformative impact of AI are Kyndryl's Ismail Amla and Patrick Gormley. Ismail is the Senior Vice President of Kyndryl Consult and has been recognised by the Financial Times as one of the UK's most influential leaders in tech. Patrick is Global Data Science and AI Consult Lead at Kyndryl. He is renowned for helping clients make sense of AI, navigate an increasingly complex landscape, and transform their businesses. Patrick and Ismail, welcome. Let us dive in. Patrick, I'd like to start with a question for you, if I may. So we've just had a look at the extent to which companies are engaging. Can you just tell me sort of more broadly, as somebody who spends your days working with clients, how do you see organisations engaging with AI?
I think, firstly, it would say it's not generic. So although there's companies at different stages, when you look at companies, enterprises, there's divisions or functions that are at different stages as well. So it's generally not very generic, and they're all on a scale. There are still companies that do absolutely nothing in this space, to the point where if you were to use the internet, you couldn't go out of the firewall to ChatGPT or Claude or anything like that. So that still exists. Then you start to see companies, and you deal with companies who's been in the experimentation and enablement stage, if you like, and certainly seen that over the last year. And this would be where they're starting to roll out enabling tools. So something like Microsoft Copilot, GitHub Copilot, Enterprise ChatGPT, for example. And that's been the experimentation. And some companies have taken that very seriously to then enforce mandatory training in this area, very much like we'd always been done with risk and compliance type training in enterprises. And actually, and even you're seeing things evolve quickly in that space now. So where it's been a generic chat GPT, for example, people have thought, well, it's useful, but are we getting maximum value? We're now starting to see, if you like, vertical integration. And what I mean by that is we're starting to see those sort of pilots, agents, assistants, call them what you will, we started to see them very, very specific. So they'll be very specific if you're a tax collector, very specific if you're a financial advisor, if you are a police inspector. Yeah. And you're starting to see this in all branches now. So we're starting to see that, so you get much more value, and it does become a true assistant in the domain you're working at. And then what you're starting to see, of course, is you're starting to see organisations, as Ian spoke about it now, or pockets of the organisations that are enabling themselves. And they are now, certainly in the last few months, when you've seen the pace of change in agentic AI and the new protocols that enable interoperability, etc., we're now seeing departments and groups of people who have been enabled, have been trained, starting to almost create their own agents and improving their own workforce, their own work styles, automating. So you're starting to see that. So that's that experimenting and enablement. We've seen a fair bit on optimizing operations. So a lot in the back office. And that's been going on for a while. This isn't new. And in fact, not only is it not new, a lot of it is not using generative AI, but we're using more classical AI. So you're talking about computer vision for production lines that looks for defaults, recommendation engines, and actually things like dynamic pricing engines for certainly in e-commerce. So you've seen that, but now we're starting to see generative AI come into that around creating synthetic data so they can do more testing and more scaling.
Yeah.
And then you're now starting to see a third tier now, which is still a minority, and these are the companies who are really showing strategic intent in AI, that it's not going to be a bolt-on. It's not going to be, they're going to move quickly from experimentation. They're now going to, that's how they're going to be, the business model is going to change. And it's a massive transformation. And a good example, Azim talked about Moderna and Microsoft changes. A good example this week was Amazon, actually. I think it was Tuesday, where the CEO, Andy Jassy, wrote to all the people to say, look, this is going to transform our business. He set up the vision there. But actually, what I liked about that, he actually talked about really starting to set up the people and really starting to prepare the people for the change and letting them know this will change your work. Things you do today will be done automation. But then really giving them the encouragement to do back into the experimentation, be curious, go on the workshops, do the trainings, work with your teams, create this, automate. So that's the strategic intent. Been working with a customer for a while who has a big strategic intent to be AI-centric. That is going to be the mission. But the transformation around that, both in technology, but also in people, in processes, in policy, is immense. So there's a real broad spectrum going on at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. And actually that really reflects what we've just seen in the poll. It feels like 2025 is almost this pivotal year, isn't it, with everybody at sort of different points on that spectrum. So perhaps we can come to you, Ismail. We've seen the poll, we've just heard Patrick talk about actually a really wide spectrum of engagement at the moment. What do you think are, I don't know, perhaps some of the main misconceptions around AI that perhaps are holding some people back or mean that they're perhaps less engaged than they might be?
Yeah, and there's a few mentioned by Patrick and Azim, but if I can sort of crystallize down to 3 or 4. Firstly, there is still, people talk about 2/3 of organizations have adopted AI. We saw a little bit of that, which means 1/3 haven't, right? Who still think it's a technology fad. And it's risky to move forward. So the first issue, and by the way, it's probably more risky to stand still than sprint in a direction where you don't quite know the destination. That's sort of where we are right now. So first idea is about it's a technology fad. Secondly, that it's technology when it's about cultural change and leadership and organizational change and behavioral change. Thirdly, the idea that giving people access means you're going to get adoption. So we hear about people saying, we've rolled out Copilot, excellent, and now what? So there's people getting confused between access and adoption. Fourthly, appointing, and we've seen this everywhere, I see it in loads of people appoint AI champions and AI advocates, and then wonder why it doesn't result in behavioral change, because those people can't drive behavioral change. And I think those are the main ones, and the big focus around can you get people to think about this is different rather than a feature functionality discussion is probably the big summary of all of that, I think.
Yeah, okay, great. So perhaps building on that, you've talked about how we get people to see it's different. Yeah. And actually one of the things that we really want today is to get people to think differently, right? Yeah. We want them to probably break away from, as we've said, these traditional benefits of efficiency, cost saving. And Patrick, perhaps we can come back to you, because obviously you're seeing lots of different use cases. What are the real sort of tangible ROI points, metrics effectively, other than cost and efficiency, where you are seeing AI start to deliver value?
Yeah, there's many ways of measuring value. You can measure it in speed, so speed of responsiveness. So you're seeing a lot of that now in customer services. So the time to resolution you're starting to see for customer issues is decreasing. You're starting to see a lot of metrics come in that. You're starting to see it in ubiquity of services. And what I mean by that, I like the examples of in healthcare. And this plays as well to will AI take jobs. One of the most progressive areas has been in radiology, radiography, because these machines have been shown to surpass actually human level of pattern recognition, and of course that what really is radiology, looking at scans, looking at X-rays. And what you're actually seeing now, that almost says that there won't be radiologists. I think there was papers back in the, when I say early days, 5 years ago or so, which said that would be one of the first professions that would be eliminated. And actually that's not true. And the data's showing actually, and what we've seen the examples of, there are actually more images being taken now because they're cheaper and they're quicker, because the machines can do them. But actually where this is happening, they're actually employing more radiologists. But what it means is more patients are being scanned, and therefore we're seeing better levels of diagnostics that we couldn't really afford or just didn't have the capacity to. So you're seeing all these new areas of value, and they're just going to, and we're only at the start of this, agentic AI is, we can do things now almost unlimited that we could only do at small scale in January this year. So it's been the explosion of the models and the new protocols that's emerged this year. So we've seen new areas of value, and we're just going to see much more, many more areas of value, including quality of output as well. So we're seeing better quality, more ubiquity of really services that will help both citizens and patients. So we've seen it all around, and it's just going to continue now.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Just maybe one more for you, Patrick, before I come to you, Ismail. Obviously, we've talked about ROI, we've talked about people getting it right, we've talked about where you can deliver tangible improvements. What about getting it wrong? Like, what are the sort of common areas you see where people are getting it wrong? They're not achieving the ROI that they want or need.
I think firstly it's recognising this is hard.
Right.
It isn't easy. It's technology is getting easier to scale, and as Azim talked about, it's getting cheaper, it's getting faster, it's getting more capable. But it's still hard in an enterprise, in a large enterprise. And what this means, if you want to be AI centric, you've got to re-engineer the whole organisation, including the way you actually manage technology. Many people like me who's been in technology a while will be used to technology being bought by enterprises and then amortized over a 5-year period. It depreciates and it's 5 years. And we were used to things in applications going from an annual to, we thought it was a big deal, a quarterly release of features and functions. And now it's daily. And actually, in terms of technology, if you look at the AI models now, we're in a place where the life cycles are now less than a year. So we're seeing models become obsolete in less than a year, so they're months old. So what it means is there's constant change. It means a whole re-engineering of the processes of an organisation. It means the whole repurposing of people. Mm-hmm. We will still need a lot of people to manage the technology when it's changing at that almost rate. And in fact, the client I was saying we want to be AI centric, they understand that they're going to have to find and train an additional 20,000 people just in technology, because they become mainly a technology AI centric company.
So can I dig into that? Sorry. Because actually that is an area that we have lots of questions on, we want to explore. People, I'm not sure which of you wants to take this, but you're saying that they want to hire lots more people.
Yes.
We've talked about skills. How do companies prepare for this? You've talked about restructuring. Like how should companies approach skills gap, workforce transformation, upskilling teams, redesigning organisations? I don't know, Ismail, perhaps that's one for you.
And it's not just a company issue, it's an individual issue and it's a national issue. And we've seen these huge events. We saw one in the Middle East just recently. Paris had one. We had one here in London where Kyndryl were mentioned as one of the partners doing good things in this space. But the World Economic Forum says 85% of organizations worldwide are looking at large-scale upskilling, to your point. 4 to 6 to 10 jobs out of 10 will be completely reconfigured. And reconfigured into what, right? So there's the area around technology that we've talked about. We talk a lot about the technology, and of course, constant stream of platforms and skills and hyperscaler functionality. So there's a constant stream of areas that the technologists will continually need to be upskilled on. But I think the big change is going to be in the business area, and the idea that we can take folks who are doing very non-technical work and make them data literate, give them skills around prompting, give them skills around the fundamentals of machine learning, ethical AI, responsible AI, is not going to be optional, actually. If we've got a fusion workforce of people and agents working alongside each other, it's going to be critical to do that. And there's some good examples. I mean, Amazon talk about $1.2 billion or billions of dollars spent in training 350,000 people since 2020 in the last 5 years. And then Microsoft talk about, from a national perspective, training millions of Africans in cyber and AI by 2030. So the ask is big, but I think a lot of organizations and governments are stepping up because they realize competitive nature of their nation, their companies and individuals will depend on it.
Thank you. So obviously massive changes ahead in terms of how people hire, how people upskill, how people organise. One of the questions that we have a lot at Wired, and in fact the very reason we're running this event today, right, is the world is moving so fast, keeping up is difficult. So actually a question for both of you really, perhaps starting with you, Ismail. How do you keep up? How do you keep up in a world where things are moving so quickly?
Well, I don't think I do, to be honest with you, right? I mean, the Stanford AI Index measured 242,000 papers on AI last year, 660 a day. So I think it's difficult to really keep up. But I think
you're not reading them all.
I think the sort of thing we're doing today, which is make sure you understand who the experts and the thinkers are. Make sure you're connected in with the people who are actually doing stuff rather than just talking about it. And then for us in Kyndryl, I think there's a realization in our customer base that this stuff is not a user experience-led discussion. It's an infrastructure-led discussion. So keeping up with what that means around what AI means for cyber, what it means for security enterprise-wide, what it means for culture change for enterprise-wide. So I know it's not a direct answer to your question, but I think multiple ways of trying to hang on to the coattails of the big thinkers in this space, I think.
Yeah, great, thank you. Patrick, anything you would add to that? Anything you do differently?
I would say don't be afraid to experiment. It's having that growth mindset, which means be prepared to fail, be afraid to look a bit foolish at times. So I actually, over a while now, I curate content. So, for example, Azim earlier, I met Azim, I said, I'm a subscriber to your weekly exponential view, as it happens. And getting those feeds in weekly, and I probably get there's 2 I get daily and a few I get weekly, just to try to keep on top. But the best thing I would tell people is start to get your hands dirty. It is cheap. I mean, you can get the free stuff. You don't even need to pay for the subscription stuff in this. Play about with it, look at the power, and as you get more and more used to just getting your hands dirty, you'll see the power of this, and then you get more comfortable. And that's just the learning. You know, if we were infants, that's how infants generally learn to do things. It's the same principle. It's go and learn it by just playing around with it. Is the early days, and experiment and make your life a little bit easier by doing it as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Really practical advice. You probably just preempted the last thing that I wanted to ask. So perhaps, Ismail, I'll come to you on this, which was, you know, what advice would you give to our audience who are watching today for, I don't know, one thing they could do differently when they go into the office on Monday? What could they do differently to enhance their own AI journey?
Yeah, so there's a great article written by Sheikh Saleh, who's one of our customers from the Middle East, in the Kyndryl Institute, which he talks about that for companies, right? What should companies do? And he has a 5-step approach, which seems fairly simple, but I think pretty profound. So firstly, what's your North Star? Why are you trying to do what you're trying to do? Secondly, what are you going to do around your data fabric? Is it a sovereignty issue? What are your guidelines? Thirdly, what are your guidelines around ethics, around AI? Fourthly, where do you get your talent from? Fifthly, start small and scale fast.
Great.
And I would advise everybody to have a think around those 5 areas.
5 tips, very good. 5 in 1. Amazing, thank you. Right, we've got lots of questions from the audience. I'm going to start with one from a gentleman called Craig. It's sort of 2 questions in one here. The first part of the question is, will there ever be a time when we are too reliant on AI, or do we remain in control? And then the second part is, should there be equal investment in cybersecurity to prevent AI being compromised by hackers? Yeah, so 2 questions. Will we become too reliant? and should there be an equal investment in cybersecurity? You can take those as you see fit. Patrick?
I'll go with the reliance. Over our evolution, that's what humans have done. We've become reliant on technologies. Even going back to agriculture, where instead of digging things up with spades, we saw mechanisation come in. So there is a danger. I mean, we even know today people get so reliant on sat-nav systems, which is not really AI, but to the point that they drive into rivers. But that's probably Darwinism, to be really frank. But it is. But they're more of an aid. You'll not replace human creativity, the needs for humans to connect. These just another technology that helps improve humanity, basically.
Yeah. Great. So perhaps you could take
on the security one, actually, I think there is already a recognition that security becomes the critical dependency on us rolling out some of these technologies, to the point where I recently saw a report where business directors are considering cyber and security as the number one risk across everything that they do, across all of the business risk, technology risk, everything. So I think that will continue, and I think the focus on enterprise-wide security alongside implementation of any new emerging technologies, I think has got to go hand in hand. I think that's a great pickup.
Okay, thank you, thank you. We've got a question specifically for you, Patrick. Patrick, how do we get the balance right between helping ourselves within functions versus building enterprise-wide capabilities, e.g. summarization, that could be used for multiple use cases?
I think if that's in the context of enterprises, actually we're starting to, that happens already. So one client we work with, they trained all the people in AI, and the compulsory training was actually for every person, every employee to create an agent, just one agent, not a squad. And actually what's happened with that is they created 27,000 employees. But actually about 10% them have gone in to be across the enterprise. They've scaled them, took them. And you're starting to see these things in hackathons now, and very much AI-centric hackathons, where people are coming and then scaling these things across the organisation. So it is happening, and it's incumbent on leaders of organisations to find the best talent. And it's not a hierarchical thing. It can come from the person who's just joined and the new starter and the lowest level of the grades.
Amazing. Right. We have a whole 30 seconds. I'm going to go quick fire for this last question. So back to people. As the pace of change is constantly increasing, how do we ensure we build people's knowledge and skills in AI to confidently put them in front of clients?
By continuous investment. And, investment is usually self-starting, because all of the content is available, free and accessible now.
Okay, great. Anything you'd add?
I think it's, again, people want to see practitioners. And they want to move away from the theory. Everyone's done with the theory. They really want to get practice. So you've got to be a practitioner.
Amazing. Patrick, Ismail, thank you so much. Thank you.